Okay, welcome to the We Rise Fighting Labor Podcast. This is Brian. It's September 11th, 2022. Today, we're honored to have two nurses from SEIU with us. They've been helping lead a campaign for union recognition and other demands at UW Health in Madison, Wisconsin. This week, they will be engaging in a strike beginning September 13th at 7 a.m. at UW Health in Madison and having a rally that day as well. And that'll be the rally will be September 13th from 4:30 to 7 at 900 University Bay Drive, and then there'll be a march following that. And there's more information at SEIU Healthcare Wisconsin on the Facebook page. Our listeners can get a whole variety of different information from there. And since we are definitely support labor here at We Rise Fighting and our union podcast, please share out that information. Our friends at SEIU and the nurses need as much help as they can get this week, getting the word out and support on the picket line, as well as information on the rally. Okay, so can we, Logan and Sherry are here, nurses from UW Health. Could you please maybe just whoever wants to go first, Logan and Sherry, just introduce yourself, who you are, and how long you've been working at UW Health, and why you chose to become a nurse. Thanks.
I can go first. So my name is Sherry Signer. I have been an employee of UW for 19 years and a nurse for 15. I worked as a nursing assistant while I was in school. I chose to be a nurse. I actually have a special education teaching degree, and I did that for a few years and realized that was not what I wanted to do with my life. So I went back to nursing school because I love taking care of patients. I love trying to brighten their day and make things better, even in awful situations that I can't completely control, but maybe I could be a bright spot in their day and try to just make something in their lives go a little bit better. And I joined this union fight 3 years ago when administration started making changes to the hospital that were directly impacting our patients and our ability to be able to make those changes and to be able to care for our patients in the way that I had been doing and that I know that my patients needed. So I got involved with this 3 years ago and have been going strong ever since.
All right, thanks, Sherry. Logan?
Hi, I'm Logan Kling Garcia. Joined UW Health about a year ago. Have been a nurse for about 10 years, have been involved in many different aspects of nursing in the hospital, currently in a clinic. I've done home hospice and inpatient hospice. And I love being able to help patients, help talk them through difficult times, being able to find them solutions so that they can have the most, healthy and productive lives that they can. So I joined this union organizing fight as soon as I joined about a year ago. I've always been a strong proponent of unions, and I think it'll give us a voice, a seat at the table, and in a way for us to continue to advocate for our patients going into the future. So that's why I joined this union fight as soon as I joined up at UW.
Okay. All right, thanks. So I'd like to start with, can you describe some of your work lives, healthcare workers' work lives, nurses, but also others at UW Health during the height of the COVID pandemic, and some of the work you were doing there, and how critical your work and the other healthcare workers' contributions were? Perhaps Sherry?
Yeah, obviously I'll address this since you've only been there a year. I mean, we're still in the pandemic, but in the height of it, things were very, very difficult at UW. Our administration sat safely at home and sent their employees into the hospital, knowing full well that we were not properly geared to take care of COVID patients. We rationed masks on general care floor, or any floor that didn't have a COVID patient. We wore the same surgical mask that's supposed to be changed multiple times a day. We wore that mask for an entire week or more. They had them locked in cabinets, the administration, and you actually had to prove that your mask was visibly soiled or ripped and torn. before you were able to get a new one. They had something called the PPE police, where they took a nursing assistant and they signed out equipment to people. In our general care COVID unit, they would not allow the nurses in that unit to wear N95s because they were rationing them. They only allowed them if patients were intubated. Otherwise, if it was a non-intubated patient, you went in and only a surgical mask and a face shield, and then a gown. Many of our nurses did contract COVID. I know that there's, not knowing everybody, at least a couple who are out of work permanently due to complications of COVID. It took months and months for us to be able to get the correct PPE for COVID patients. And the hospital would refuse to actually tell us how much supply we had and where we were with what we had in stock and how we could get more. Some of us bought our own, like the KN95s that you could start to find, and they refused to let you wear those because it wasn't hospital issued. So that was one thing through the union. Because we had already presented our cards before the pandemic that we wanted a union. So we all took a step back and changed our focus from unionization to getting safe care for the nurses. So that way we could try to feel a little bit more comfortable coming home to our families. At the very beginning, it was terrifying. I have 2 young children. My husband is a nurse at the hospital as well. And I worked in the COVID units. I was a float nurse at that time. So I went all over the hospital, and we chose at that point that I, just stopped giving my kids kisses, and my husband would give them a kiss goodnight because he wasn't as exposed, but I was. So trying to keep them safe. And the first day I had to go back into the hospital, I think I cried for a few hours before I went in. And I know I'm not the only nurse that has had that situation. I think many nurses have PTSD in general from how the management has treated us since we lost our union contract in 2014. And the pandemic really exacerbated that. The poor ICU nurses who had to hold patients' hands while they died, while they held iPads for their families, while they held iPads for the physicians to be able to communicate with their patients, because nobody went into those COVID rooms except for the nurses. If respiratory therapy did, but if a doctor, if a case manager, anyone else needed to communicate with that patient, it was the nurse that went in holding an iPad, and everybody else stayed out.
Okay, Sherry, for those listeners who aren't aware, those situations you described are horrific, and we send our solidarity. For those listeners that aren't aware, can you explain a bit how things were prior to Act 10 and the right to work in the anti-labor laws in Wisconsin, and that you had a contract and some of the things that you had then as opposed to now?
Yeah, oh my gosh, UW was a fantastic place to work. We were a community. We were a large entity, but we were a family. Our CEO made a point to come around and know what was going on. She always respected and valued and honored the nurses. She kept engaged as to what was happening. If we were really high on patient numbers, and if this was like a long-term thing where we were going for days and days, she would stop and buy the whole hospital pizza. And she would put out an email saying, I know how hard you're working and how appreciated you are. And, so she would recognize us. If there was ever an issue that you had in the hospital, you could easily go to your union and bring that up with them, and the union would step in. On the unit I worked on a cancer floor, we had some concern over chemotherapy exposure, and the union was critical in bringing in OSHA to help us with that. And there was a full OSHA case study that went on, and it was just a safe environment. You felt protected. We were valued. After 2014, the administration promised us that that we did not need a union and that we would be taken care of. And that lasted about 3 months. And then the first email came with the first cut to nurses' wages. And in nursing, you get a differential if you work a PM shift or a night shift or weekends. And those differentials were slowly started to decrease. And then every month, something else came. And actually, when I joined, because it was a critical event that definitely got in the way of patient safety in the hospital, that was when I joined this fight. I actually sat down with my husband and we made a list of all of the things that we could think of in the hospital that had changed since 2014. And we came up with a list. This was before COVID, a list of over 40 things that the hospital had done to take away benefits, decrease our salaries without actually decreasing our salaries, just little cuts here and there, stripping of education, tuition reimbursements. Staffing ratios were decreasing, implementing lean staffing where you do more work with less people. They had just gone too far. So it's a completely different environment now. It's very hostile, very disrespectful. Nurses don't feel like we are professionals anymore. The administration does not see us as equals. They don't think that we have any ability to actually make good decisions for our patients, and they think that they can make all these decisions. So it's been a very abusive relationship over the last almost 10 years.
So in this contract, it's really not a contract fight, but in this campaign, this recognition campaign, besides the demand for recognition, what are some of your demands leading up to the strike and what the strike is for? Either Logan or Sherry.
So we are asking for voluntary recognition. We are asking for no retaliation against staff who are participating in this strike and who have been involved in any way in union organizing. And then there was a nurse who was fired a few months ago, and we did ask for her to be reinstated. So those are the three big asks right now. And then, depending upon how things go, then we'll look at more specifics as we go on.
Okay. What can supporters do to support the campaign generally, but also this week during the strike and for the rally? What are specific asks you're asking of labor community supporters to assist in the campaign and the strike?
Well, anyone who can join us on the picket line would be appreciated. I know you mentioned the rally before. We definitely want people there as well. We want to really show UW the solidarity, not just between the nurses, but also with the community. Nursing has been consistently voted one of the most trusted professions in the whole United States. And so we want to show UW that this push for recognition by the union, by the nurses, is also for the community, and that the community at large supports us and wants us to be able to advocate for them as we do every day at work.
There's also a support uwnurses.org that people can go to, and where you can actually send a letter to SEIU and let them know how you feel about this, and that you want the hospital to try to put a stop to this and work with their nurses. We have on that same site, it'll take you to also a hardship fund that we're asking for money for nurses, since nurses will go unpaid for those 3 days. If people feel like they can't financially go unpaid for that amount of time, we did ask for money from the community to help with that if needed. And definitely come into the picket line, however much time you can spend there, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 a.m. till whenever you want to go, that would be wonderful.
Okay, so just specifics for that picket line that's going to start at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. And what's the
Yes.
address? Where do people go? Where should they go?
So we're gonna kind of be all over, but at 600 Highland Avenue. The parking, so the parking ramp itself will probably not be eligible for people to just park in there. So actually the Shorewood neighborhood has gotten rid of their 2-hour parking. So people can park on the street anywhere in Shorewood, which is fabulous and awesome that they did that for us. It's a lot of it, we're kind of basing out of the Unitarian Society. They've given us their building for bathrooms and to hold the rally later. So we'll be kind of going back and forth between that main entrance of the main hospital and around to the Children's Hospital.
Okay. I think I noticed the South Central Federation of Labor is posting stuff on their Facebook page too as well. So, but the base of operations is mostly going to be at the Unitarian Church. For the
Around
entire-
that area, yeah, and we're still figuring out some specifics on if we need a picket line over at Madison East Hospital. So we'll just have it on our website as to where people definitely should go come Tuesday. It'll be on the SEA website.
Okay. Thanks. So I noticed you had a wonderful September 5th Labor Day press conference. And before asking any question about that, do you have any remarks on how you felt about that or your response? It looked to be quite a robust response from not only nurses from the community, but also friendly politicians, as well as I think I saw some students in there as well. Do you have any comments about that for the Labor Day press conference?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I've been to the Labor Fest the last few years since I've been involved with this, with SEIU and actively involved. And this is the biggest Labor Fest that I've seen. We had a lot of supporters, community supporters, other unions, nurses, so many people came out, elected officials. There were a lot of elected officials that were there, Mandela Barnes, Josh Call. Tony Evers would have been there, but he was at the Labor Fest in Milwaukee where President Biden was. We had some of the Dane County board members were there. It was a great turnout for solidarity, and it was a very inviting, warm, welcoming community where everyone let us know that they were standing with us. They did a roll call at the beginning of the Labor Fest, and every union without prompting said they supported UW, and that was really great to see.
Okay. Yeah. Were you there, Logan? I think at the press conference on Labor Day.
I was, yeah, it was an amazing show of support from the community. I'm having difficulty describing it. It was my first Labor Fest that I had been to, and it was just, it was an amazing showing of support from both, the community, other unions, right, elected officials. I'm having trouble describing it. It was just a very, uplifting, affirming thing for us to see that outpouring of support.
Okay. Well, that so goes into our next question about a variety of worker actions, and I think we heard this during the press conference in some regards that there's a variety of workers on the move across the country right now, from strikes to other kinds of labor actions, and this includes in Wisconsin. Right now, the UAW 180 is on strike in Racine, almost 4.5 months now, and custodians are fighting privatization. At UW Oshkosh, the administration wants to try to privatize the custodians there, but they had a protest last week, the custodians, against that. And of course, it's very dangerous because they would be taken out of the pension system if they were privatized. But they are protesting that. There was a UAW strike in Sheboygan earlier this year. So how do you see your nurses struggle in relation to these labor battles and others such as Amazon and Starbucks? Logan and Sherry.
I mean, think it is. We are seeing more and more workers realizing that we are the real people who are getting things done at these companies, and we want to have a say in the places that we work. We want it to have, we want to have a seat at the table. We want there to be some discussion with management on how things go by the people who are actually, you know, frontline workers, right? People actually doing the jobs. And so it's great to see all of these other people working just as hard as we are to try and get our voices heard and to be able to, you know, get their unions recognized, and it's great.
Yeah, we're calling it hot labor summer. Because and strike timber right now.
Yeah, especially with the nurses in Minnesota.
Yes. But I think having all these different groups standing up for their rights, for their work environments, for their patients, if that, you know, is a part of the issues that they're having, it just shows that we're done allowing these companies to treat us in such a disrespectful way. Like Logan said, we are the heart of a lot of these companies. You know, in the nursing profession in hospitals, people are admitted strictly for nursing care. It is not for the doctors. It's not for administration. They're there because our doctors have ordered something that they need a nurse to administer or monitor. And, you know, I feel as if our administration has lost sight of that because of the working conditions that we've had and the fact that they have changed it so we are not able to give those patients the care that they need and deserve by increasing the nurse to patient ratios. So having all these other areas stand up and say enough is enough, I think that just helps to bring solidarity to all the workers and everyone who wants, you know, things to be great again.
Great. Okay, so we're here with We Rise Fighting Labor Podcast with Logan and Sherry from the SEIU in Madison, and they will be going on strike September 13th to the 16th at UW Health in Madison, Wisconsin. And just for our listeners, one more time, can you mention the specific strike and rally information, Logan or Sherry?
Sorry, you cut out there on me.
Oh, sorry, I was just asking, could you please provide just one more time for our listeners the specific strike and rally information where they should be on beginning Tuesday the 13th?
Absolutely. So this upcoming Tuesday the 13th, starting at 7 in the morning, we will be having the strike start. We will be forming a picket line all around University Bay Drive. If you are going to looking for parking, the Shorewood neighborhood has helped us out there by lifting the 2-hour parking. If you want to stop by the Unitarian Society, that's usually a good headquarters. You can get a little information, pick up a sign, join us on the picket line, show UW that we mean business.
And also at 4 o'clock at the Unitarian Society, there is going to be a rally to kind of kick off the picket and to just thank the community for coming out. There'll be a band there, VO5, they'll be playing after, you know, some of us say a few words. So yeah, so we would love to see as many people as possible.
Okay. So we have 1 or 2 more announcements, and is there anything, the floor is yours, or anything else you'd like to say at this time, Logan or Sherry, to, you know, anything you feel that is pertinent to the strike or that you'd like to say about your craft nursing? Please feel free to go ahead.
Yeah, I would just like people really to know that the nurses 100% are giving their all to their patients at this point by standing up and walking out, and that the hospital has been doing a lot of intimidation and telling us that we're abandoning our patients and trying to pull on the heartstrings of the nurses, and they're counting on the nurses to be too worried about their patients to actually strike. And that's 100% not the case, that we're not abandoning our patients. We gave a 10-day notice, even more than a 10-day notice, to give our administration time to do their job to replace all of us. And administration needs to be informed that they have let down the patients, they have abandoned their patients by not taking care of their workers. And I always like to put in that this is not just about nurses, this is about all workers in the hospital. Unfortunately, at this time, we can't unionize nursing assistants, housekeepers, food service with SEIU. We're hoping that this will eventually start a bigger movement within UW, because they have been equally as impacted by lean staffing, and their working conditions are just as bad as the nurses. But because we are one of the only professional groups and the largest group, we're the ones that are standing up first and letting people know exactly what has been going on. And in my almost 20 years, I've seen 4 different CEOs, and I know that this will not be my last CEO. But I've been there. Nurses are there. Our CEO changes. And so we actually care about the community. We care about the facility. None of us, when we first started at UW, it was a less than 2% turnover rate. So it was not a facility that you ever left. And I don't plan on leaving. Also, it's our level 1 trauma center. I'm not getting any younger, and I could get in an accident any day. Every single person, this impacts every single person in this entire state and in surrounding states. So this is so vital that the hospital knows that we are not a big business, that our patients are not profits, and that nurses are not bodies. We are people, we are respected, and I have a ton of experience, and you can't just throw that away. You shouldn't. The hospital is trying to throw it away, and you shouldn't. They believe a nurse is a nurse is a nurse, and that is not the case. It's insulting and not truthful, and they need to do something to keep us at the bedside and keep us in the organization. And recognizing our union is the way that they're going to do that.
Right on. Okay, thanks, Sherry. Logan, would you have anything? Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I have been not surprised, but still incredible at the way in which the administration has chosen to handle this. Like Sherry said, we gave more than a 10-day notice to let the administration know what was going on. And since then, we have received many emails with cryptic and threatening messages, threatening potential raises, threatening our livelihood, telling us that we're abandoning our patients. And while we didn't expect the administration to perhaps respond honorably, we did not want them to be doing things like sending emails to the providers we work with and telling them to avoid the strike because they don't know what's going to happen and that there will be heightened security. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that this protest is happening, but it will be a peaceful thing. The strike is happening, but we are here doing this for our patients and for our coworkers. So, the fear mongering that the administration is doing, I urge you to see it for what it is, which is an attempt to silence the nurses and prevent the strike from happening. And that's not happening. We're standing together. We're calling out, the intimidation when we see it. And we hope to see everyone at that picket line come Tuesday.
Okay, thanks. So I just have one last question. Really appreciate your time today. Do you have any words of a message for your fellow, which will be your fellow strikers, but also, of course, fellow workers from UAW 180? They've been on strike for about 4.5 months. And I just wanted to see if you had any message of solidarity for them or anything you'd like to say to them. They've been out there 24 hours a day, I think since May. So that's it.
Wow, that's a long time for them to be out there. The UW nurses are standing in solidarity with you. We always encourage people to reach out to let us know how we can support you better and how we can stand beside you and to help in any way that we possibly can.
Great. Okay, so again, we thank you. And so this is Re-Rise Fighting. We are here in solidarity with the UW Health nurses. We thank Logan and Sherry for coming on the program with their busy schedules, especially since the Packers are playing in a little while. That's important in Wisconsin, for those of you that don't know. So the strike starts at 7 a.m. Tuesday, September 13th, University Bay Drive at UW Health. Listeners and supporters can go down to the picket line and help for as short or as long as they can. Stop by your lunchtime, break time, or all day if you can. And also the rally is going to be at the Unitarian Church there in Madison at beginning at 4 p.m. and it'll be followed by a march. And the strike will go for 3 days. And for those who want more information, correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry or Logan, they can go to the SEIU Healthcare Facebook page and the website you mentioned. And there will be updated information there as well, and is on Twitter. And SEIU Wisconsin will be keeping that updated throughout the strike. And people, please can share that information as wide and as far as possible on social media and elsewhere. If there's flyers, please get those up at your work sites and spread the word with your families, those who have been taken care of by the nurses. This is the time to show solidarity and support for our nurses who have kept us alive and moving and comforting to our families for generations. So is there any last words? Otherwise, we can wrap up today. And again, from We Rise Fighting and my fellow co-host, Rick and Jerry, we send solidarity to you all. And we will, in our circles, we will definitely share the information and do everything we can to assist you all in your strike. So do you have any last words, Logan or Sherry? Otherwise, we can just wrap up for the day. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for having us on, and thank you for your support and trying to get others rallied.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, and we wish you well. Take care.